welcome to Arthritis Answers. I'm Kendall Horvatich, the Development Manager for the Arthritis Foundation.
And I'm Ashley Craig, Special Events Director for the Arthritis Foundation.
And we know a lot of kids have gone back to school last week and some even today. And we wanted to talk about what you can do for your child if they have arthritis going back to school, some things to make their days easier, help with some of their stiffness, and so on and so forth. So first we're going to just do a little bit of a juvenile arthritis review based on the information we talked about last month. So juvenile arthritis, or JA as we may refer to it, is inflammation of the joints, to put it simply. It may cause your child to get sick. They could have a high fever, a skin rash, they could be tired, loss of vision, harm to other organs, and the cause of juvenile arthritis is still unknown.
It's definitely a very serious condition for a lot of kids, and kids with JA never know what to expect. Their pain comes and goes, so some days they might be feeling fine. Some days in the morning they might feel bad, but they might be fine in the afternoon. So it makes it hard going back to school, and the other kids and teachers may not understand what your child is going through.
Yeah, and I know some of the families we work with, the mom gets up or the dad gets up before the child, about 30 minutes before, and they'll go in and put a warm blanket on the child to lay there for 30 minutes with the warm blanket, and that just helps them be able to even get out of the bed. Sometimes they have to be carried down the stairs, but by the time they're done with breakfast, they are fine.
Fine and ready to go. Yeah, it's such a serious condition, and things like that we don't think of that kids are doing and that are going through.
So what can be hard for your child going back to school with arthritis? It can be hard for them to walk far. So you could work with the school and maybe they can leave class a few minutes early so they have a little bit more time in between classes to get from one place to the other. You can minimize the extra walking by having them ask if their classes can be in the same part of the school if that's possible. Or stiffness they may have. Usually, like we said, it's in the morning. I think as a lot of us can tell, when you're sitting for a long time and then you get up, you're obviously stiff. With somebody with arthritis, it's even worse. So getting up and moving in the middle of class can often help just keep their joints fluid. So working with a teacher, maybe every hour they can get up and just walk around the classroom or just stand up and do some stretches. Allowing movement whenever possible is a great idea for them. Books can be really hard for kids with arthritis because they're so heavy and they already have so much strain on their joints. So asking if the school has multiple levels, if they can have a locker with a set of books on each level, or asking for them to have a separate set of books at home so they don't have to transport them back and forth. And if that's not possible, it's best for your child to have a rolling backpack versus a back they put on their back that's putting all that pressure on their joints. Some students may have trouble writing. So asking if there is a computer for them to use to type notes, or a buddy who they can share notes with, or if the teacher can help them, is always a good idea. And then when it comes to PE, sometimes the kid's not going to be able to do the same things as other kids. So working with that PE teacher and the administration at the schools for alternative options, beach ball versus baseball, walking instead of running, dancing versus jumping rope are all good ideas, but you really just need to have a conversation and talk with the different teachers and administrators.
And I think, as a lot of us know, having to do those different things and being different as a child in school is hard, and so dealing with your peers, your child's peers, can be difficult as well. It depends on the child whether or not they want you to know if they have arthritis or not. I know we have a situation where we know someone who, she grew up with arthritis and did not tell anyone. And so a lot of kids in her school just thought she was a troublemaker.
Yeah, she couldn't sit on the floor when they would have assemblies, so they would let her sit in the chairs with the teachers on the sides. And every time the kids would ask her, "Why do you get to sit up there?" And she would say, "Oh, I pushed somebody," or "I did something bad." She would make up an excuse to be bad. So it could be very hard for the child to be treated differently, but it's really best for their joints.
Absolutely. And it really depends on if your child wants to tell anyone or not. And if they do, know that you could educate their classmates with a healthcare provider or someone even from the Arthritis Foundation coming in and explaining to the students and the teachers why these things are happening and why there has to be additional support and different things for those children. Just be sensitive to their needs. Every kid wants to fit in, and so just make sure that you focus on their strengths and not the fact that they have arthritis, and make sure it's not limiting what they may want to do. And missing school is also tough, so there might be a couple of days a week where they're out because they don't feel good and they don't get to see their friends and their peers. And so making sure maybe that you can send an email message or set up some time with those friends and families where you can still remain close even though they are missing school.
Yeah, and so you really need to, as we said, work with the teachers and the administrators on what your child needs. You should schedule a meeting early on in the first couple weeks with not only their teacher, but maybe the principal, and talk about, here's what's going on with my child, here's their special needs, how can we make this work? Keep them informed, communicate with them regularly, whether it's phone calls, emails, maybe the teacher likes a text message from you, just letting them know what's happening. Maybe the child is having a really bad flare. Letting your teacher know that this is happening to the child may give them a little more compassion and help, knowing that the child can't sit, and maybe instead of taking a break every hour, they need to take one every 30 minutes on this particular day. So keeping informed. You also want to work with the school to find a point person. Who's the person you need to stay in contact with when your child has an issue? A lot of kids that we work with, sometimes they have to go get an infusion every week, and they can't do that locally. So we have families from Warsaw who have to drive to Indianapolis to get an infusion every week. And so they're out of school 1 to 2 days a week. And so really making sure that conversation's open so your child doesn't stay behind. And you want to just have a plan of what can happen, what if your child's going to be missing and something comes up all of a sudden, and work with the teacher, make sure they know the plan, you have the plan in place.
Absolutely. And also just be an advocate for your child. There's a 504 plan or the Section 504 of the Rehabilitations Act in 1973. No one with disabilities can be prevented from participating in federally funded programs. So know that document and know that it can travel with your student from school to school, and know that you need to be an advocate for their health.
Yes. And if you have trouble working with the school on this, you can always reach out to us and we can help you. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, Amber Wolf is going to be with us to talk about the Indiana State Fair.
When Margaret and I decided to sell the old estate here, we had only one choice in signage: Logan Street signs and banners. Conveniently not located on Logan Street anymore, but rather located on 10th Street on the south side of Noblesville. Well, we sold the old beauty, and we were able to buy this wonderful estate. And we had so much money left over, I was able to buy this beautiful 1968 Eldorado Cadillac for Margaret. Only 472,000 miles. Margaret loves it because it's got those big seats and that heavy-duty suspension to support her svelte frame. Next time you're looking for signs or banners, call old Jim at Logan Street Signs and Banners, 773-7200. Conveniently not located on Logan Street anymore.
Everyone knows it's easy to find first-run movies in the big theaters. But where can you go to watch your favorite classic movies on the big screen for the perfect night out? Why rent a flick when you can rent the entire theater? Call today to reserve a 32-seat theater for your next event, or just stop by to see what's showing this weekend. The 14 by 7 foot screen and the high quality digital surround sound system offers all the amenities you would expect from the big theaters, with a laid back atmosphere and comfortable seating of your own home. Wofford Theater at 1744 South 10th Street in Noblesville gives you the you want with a big theater experience.
Hi, welcome back to Arthritis Answers. Before we get started with Amber, we want to thank our sponsors, Logan Street Signs and Banners and the Wofford Theater. So, Amber, welcome back.
Hi, thank you.
So, Amber's here to talk to us about the Indiana State Fair, and her agribility program actually has some things going on at the State Fair.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Kendall. As Kendall said, my name is Amber Wolf, and I am the Agribility Project Coordinator for the Arthritis Foundation, meaning I work specifically with agricultural audiences, farmers, ranchers, gardeners, and so forth. So I wanted to mention a few things about the Indiana State Fair that's coming up this year. Obviously, every year people look forward to the State Fair at the end of the summer. It's the hottest part of the season. School is starting to get back in session, but there are a lot of good opportunities for people to still get out and enjoy the State Fair. The State Fair starts officially this Friday, August 7th, and it runs for 17 days. And this year, there are several different opportunities for people to get out and enjoy it just a little bit more. And I know, Kendall, you had even mentioned that you wanted to get your tickets purchased very quickly so you could take your family. There are advance tickets available until Thursday, August 6th for $8, and you can go online and find those. But this year's theme for the State Fair is the Year of the Farmer. So what we wanted to do this year is really focus on the farmer and focus on how can we be providing educational components, how can we be focusing on the health of farmers as well, and really doing a little bit more than just going to the Midway. And so many people tend to think that the State Fair is just the Midway, and it's really not.
No, there's a lot of great things off to the sides.
Absolutely. My favorite part of the State Fair is the north side of the track. Get away from the Midway. Absolutely. Go to the FFA Pavillion for the free miniature golf, and go to the Pioneer Pavilion, or spend some time in the livestock barns. There's a lot that can be learned there. We have some agribility things going on at the State Fair as well. So what I'd like to share is a few of our different displays where all of you can come out to the State Fair and learn a little bit more about agribility. And as we had mentioned in some previous programs, agribility is a program that works with farmers and ranchers with all forms of disabilities. So as you can see in some of the images, we have things like tractors that have wheelchair lifts. We have modified hand controls for machinery and different things that people can come out and take a look at. We have two different displays this year. We have one that is in the FFA Pavillion, and that is on the north side of the track, like I mentioned, and you can always find that because it's where the petting zoo is for the kids. It's where the free putt-putt is for the kids, and they have a great little country store there.
That's Kinsley's favorite part, is to go through with her little apron and pick up all the...
Oh, absolutely. All of the free stuff and all the different toys they can do. And if they come through, and I know Kinsley goes through the petting zoo, they'll see our tractor there. And it's a great display because this tractor has the wheelchair lift on it that really draws kids and parents alike to come over and say, why would this be needed for a farmer with disabilities? So it gives us a chance to show them how we can still allow somebody to be accessible on the farm. We also have a grain bin safety demonstration there that shows how much strength it would take if there were a grain bin accident, which unfortunately is common in Indiana. And then lots of other really good free information. So that's a great place that anyone going to the State Fair can come by and learn a little bit more about agribility. The next place that we have a display this year is in the new Purdue Extension Ag Hort building. And this building is on the south side of the track towards the west end, right by the entrance to the Midway. So if you're going into the main Midway entrance, it's kind of right over to your right-hand side. And this building is full of educational, hands-on, interactive displays. So if you wanted to bring, your daughter over, she could go through all about how honeybees live and produce their honey. And she could find out everything about how their food, gets from the grocery store, from the farms, and to her plate. So it's a really neat interactive building to get into. And one of the other booths in there is also an agribility booth this year. So we will have some assistive technology tools in the Ag Hort building. We will have different banners and pictures and newsletters and resources about some of the farmers here in Indiana that we have helped specifically. Several of them are from around Indianapolis. They're not too far away from here, and it's kind of neat to be able to read those stories and see what we have. So the Ag Hort building is the second place, I would say, to take Kinsley if you take her to the fair this year.
Definitely.
The last thing I wanted to cover today is some of the other healthy options for the State Fair. And in general, most people don't think of healthy when they think state fair. They think deep fried Twinkies. And this year I've heard we're having deep fried corn, which is going to be entertaining, chocolate covered bacon and things like that. So there are some healthy options for all ages. And a few of the things that I wanted to kind of bring to mind are just a lot of the different demonstrations that are happening. They're all free. There are culinary demonstrations. There's a dance stage and active educational exercise demonstrations that people can participate in. And there's also just a lot of different kids games and areas where people can just kind of take a break and not have to be so hot and not be exhausted. So if their arthritis is flaring up, or if they just need to sit down and take a break because their knees are hurting, finding some of those areas where those health garden and those health booth areas have maybe a misting station or some free water even. Finding ways to make the state fair not such a burden on them. And then some of the other things that they can think about if you're planning a trip to the state fair is that this year it is completely non-smoking on the entire fairgrounds. There are hand sanitizing stations everywhere, there's plenty of handicap parking, and there's also mobility rentals. So if someone does have severe issues with their arthritis, they could rent a scooter or a wheelchair. And I would highly suggest bringing a wagon for some of those kids, like you mentioned with JRA, and not asking them to walk the whole fairgrounds. Another thing that they can remember is that on Tuesday, August 11th and Tuesday, August 18th, all seniors can actually ride the shuttle for free. So they can ride the entire fairgrounds all day long without having to have any extra charge. And then they don't, again, have to put a lot of extra stress on their bodies or really work. So to kind of round all of that out, there are a few days that I would suggest going to the fair if you had to pick out of these 17 days, because they are my favorite days of the state fair. I like what's called the $2 Taste of Tuesdays, and that means all of the different vendors have their food for $2, and you can also get discount admission on those different days as well. And I'll be there in those booths at the FFA Pavillion on August 10th and the 11th and the 18th. So you could come by and see me. We could talk a little bit about agribility. We can share all of our resources. And then we can also just kind of give you an idea of where else to go on the fairgrounds and maybe what else you could do while you're there that day.
Yeah, sounds great. So what is your favorite part of the fair?
For me, it's probably the livestock and the animals. I'm a livestock person. I grew up on a farm, so I love spending time in the show barn watching the kids, learn what it takes to be a good showman and have good sportsmanship and what it takes to fit their animals. And I really like seeing the youth talking to the general public about how well they treat their animals and how well the meat is prepared and the food is taken care of before it's going to get to their plate. It's a really good opportunity for those youth to educate the public, and I love seeing them take a chance to do that.
Yeah, I agree. I think the fair is a great educational tool, not just fun with the rides and all the different foods, but it's a great way on the north side to kind of take kids. I mean, my daughter's was 2 last year, and that was her favorite part, was the north side. She was done with the rides, but she liked going in the glass barn and pretending she was on a farm picking all the different vegetables and stuff. So I think it's a great opportunity for the kids to learn. Well,
absolutely.
When we come back, Amber's going to be with us to talk about harvest and some agribility ways you can make the harvest easier on you. So we'll be right back.
Thank you.
When Margaret and I decided to sell the old estate here, we had only one choice in signage: Logan Street signs and banners. Conveniently not located on Logan Street anymore, but rather located on 10th Street on the south side of Noblesville. Well, we sold the old beauty, and we were able to buy this wonderful estate. And we had so much money left over, I was able to buy this beautiful 1968 Eldorado Cadillac for Margaret. Only 472,000 miles. Margaret loves it because it's got those big seats and that heavy-duty suspension to support her svelte frame. Next time you're looking for signs or banners, call old Jim at Logan Street Signs and Banners, 773-7200. Conveniently not located on Logan Street anymore.
Everyone knows it's easy to find first-run movies in the big theaters. But where can you go to watch your favorite classic movies on the big screen for the perfect night out? Why rent a flick when you can rent the entire theater? Call today to reserve our 32-seat theater for your next event, or just stop by to see what's showing this weekend. 14 by 7 foot screen and the high quality digital surround sound system offers all the amenities you would expect from the big theaters, with a laid back atmosphere and comfortable seating of your own home. Wofford Theater at 1744 South 10th Street in Noblesville gives you the classic movies you want with a big theater experience.
Hi, and welcome back to Arthritis Answers. Amber is with us again, and she's going to tell us about harvest.
Thank you so much, Kendall. Well, as we talked about the state fair in the last segment, it always kind of reminds farmers that after the state fair, it's time to really start gearing up for harvest season. And this year's been a little different in Indiana because we've had so much rain. I think harvest will be a little bit later in the season, but it's still a very, very stressful time of year for farmers. And if a farmer is battling arthritis as well, they're really not looking forward to the pain that might be associated with all the work they're doing, and they might already be dreading just having to get out and get some stuff done. So I've got a couple of reminders and some things today we can talk about on how those farmers can get through harvest a little bit better, maybe manage their arthritis pain, use some assistive technology, and kind of go from there. Just to kind of remember, for some people who maybe haven't been on the program before, about 1/3 of all the farmers in the United States have some form of arthritis. Now that could be rheumatoid arthritis, it could be lupus or fibromyalgia, but more often than not in agriculture it's osteoarthritis. And we're working with that degeneration and that wear and tear on their joints. Farmers use their bodies like their number one tool. So they don't generally think about the stress and the strain they're putting on their bodies. And they also don't really realize they're at risk so much of arthritis pain. The problem that we have also is that we have a lot of younger generations and a lot of youth being hired on the farms right now, especially in the summer, putting up hay and straw. And we're asking them to do some jobs that might be causing them some joint pain as well. So a couple of things that we tend to talk to some of our farmers about if we have someone call with a problem, or if we just wanted to put out some information like we are on this show. Some things related to arthritis management that they need to remember is make sure that they have a proper diagnosis of what type of arthritis they might have, because the way they manage their pain with osteoarthritis might be completely different than that of like rheumatoid arthritis or gout even. We want them to make sure that they're watching their weight and maybe exercising. And most farmers are going to shake their heads and say, I work 16-hour days, exercise is not an option. But we want them to understand that good cardiovascular exercise is very beneficial. Even just simply walking to the mailbox instead of taking the gator or the mule can really help. But also watching their diet and eating certain things and certain foods that aren't going to cause arthritis flare-ups, and things that might help them cut a little bit of weight before the harvest season starts. Joint protection and body mechanics is also very important. Understanding how to lift properly if they're lifting heavy sacks of grain or fertilizer or seed. You know, coming into harvest, they're not necessarily filling so many of their planters, but they're still working with heavy tools and machinery, and they need to understand to use that largest joint possible. So if they're carrying, you carry it up here with your shoulders, not with your wrists. Understanding that they need to lift with their legs, not with their backs.
Yes.
We've been taught that our whole lives, but not everybody stops and thinks about that as they get going. There are also some different assistive technologies that are available out there, and different ways that they can modify their tools to make things a little bit easier on them. So we'll pull up a few of those on the screen, and we can talk a little bit about that. So some of the things that farmers can do is to make sure that they understand proper mounting techniques as well, leading with their good knee if they have a knee with osteoarthritis and not supporting their weight with their bad knees, making sure they understand their personal body limitations, especially with youth. They might think they can carry a lot more than they actually can, or that they can put twice as much pressure on, you know, a wrench or a tool they're using, because they don't want to let somebody down on the farm. So we've really got to make sure we're working with the youth as well and their limitations. And then making sure that they know, you know, the proper way to even stand while they're working in a shop. You know, hours and hours on concrete without an anti-fatigue mat or the improper posture is going to cause a lot of arthritis pain in their backs, their hips, and their knees. So these are things that, you know, all farmers are going to do every day, but they might not think about the proper way to do that. And so it kind of becomes our job to say, how can we help you? What other tools can we suggest?
Yeah, because it's, you know, they've seen their father do it or their grandfather do it, and might not have get passed down, hey, standing there still for so long, it's not the best idea.
Exactly. And that's one thing that we talk to a lot of farming generations about, is that, you know, even while some forms of arthritis are genetic, generally osteoarthritis is just the way you have used your body. And they'll say, well, but my father and my grandfather had it. Well, that's probably because you're working the same way that your father and your grandfather did. It's not necessarily because you're in the same family line. So we need to educate all of those generations on how to properly do that. Some of the other things that we can suggest would be, maybe while they're riding in those combines for hours and hours this year in harvest, would be some air suspension seats or some shock absorption. Even a pillow behind their back could help with that proper posture, because anyone knows if we sit in these chairs for 16 hours a day, even as comfortable as they are, we're going to be hurting by the end of the day. So finding ways to support their posture and while they're riding that machinery, even adding things like some padding to the handles and the steering wheels, because that vibration, again, you don't really notice it right away, but after 16 hours in a tractor or in a combine, you're going to notice that.
Yeah.
Some other things that we would suggest, if you have, let's say, for example, we have a farmer who has severe arthritis in their shoulders or their neck, turning to look behind them to check on their implements is often very difficult, or turning to talk to somebody, or checking on people behind you as you're working for safety is very difficult. So something as cheap and easy as additional mirrors on the sides of their machinery really helps with something like that. It just gives them a little bit wider range of vision without having to turn and twist all of the time. And then some other things that we see quite frequently, especially with lower back pain and arthritis, is that a lot of times things like this table or a tool bench aren't at the proper height for the person working at that bench. So something as easy as putting some blocks of wood underneath, so everybody knows right now farmers are working on their machinery, getting it ready for harvest. Well, as you're spending hours and hours in that shop, make sure the tables are at the right height, or you have an adjustable stool even, so you're not stressing your back. And make sure you've got those anti-fatigue mats to stand on, and using tools that are going to fit that individual person. You know, I know growing up on the farm, my grandfather's grip on a wrench was completely different than mine. Yeah. So he could work for hours comfortably, whereas I was having to grip and hold, and it would hurt my hands, even when I was young. So making sure that as farmers are getting ready this fall season, that they're using tools that fit them as well, and making sure they're taking all of the proper procedures they can to really keep themselves healthy and safe. So one thing I just kind of wanted to close with is the buzzword of ergonomics. And, you know, we hear about ergonomics, you always hear about it with maybe job sites and, factory workers, but it really applies to farmers as well. Because like I said, you're trying to fit the job each person on a farm is doing to their physical capabilities in their body. A 16-year-old is going to have completely different capabilities than a 45-year-old. Mm-hmm. And they're also going to be doing different job tasks on the farm, using different tools on the farm. And we want to be able to add all of those things up, every single component, and make it work so that worker is healthy, so they're comfortable in their environment. But also on the farm, the bottom line is productivity. Are they getting the job done? Mm-hmm. Are we getting the entire field done, before dark? Or if we've had to get out and work on some machinery, are they doing it in a safe environment where they're not going to cause risk and harm to themselves? A lot of osteoarthritis is caused by injuries on the farm specifically. So if we can prevent those injuries, we can prevent some of that arthritis pain as well.
If someone has questions or wants more information on harvest or these tools that you're talking about, where can they go?
Well, there's a couple different places. First off, they can start going to our website at the Arthritis Foundation and link through to Agribility or the Arthritis and Agriculture page. We have a specific website. It is arthritis-ag.org, which is the Arthritis and Agriculture website, and that will also link through to Agribility for other disability information, not just arthritis as well. And they can also call toll-free 1-800-783-2342, and they can reach any of us in the office for more information.
Well, thank you, Amber, for joining us today and giving us some great information. We want to once again thank the Wofford Theater and Logan Street Signs and Banners for sponsoring this, and we will see you next month.
Thank you.
Thank you.